Dear friends, welcome to day 3 of our conference. Actually, right now, Dr. Sahadev Singh was expected to join. He is getting delayed for some other reason. So we have taken the liberty to have a discussion about a topic of great relevance and interest, for which we are going to have a panel discussion towards the end of the day. But at that time, we may not have much time to discuss the entire topic. So I would like to take this next half an hour to introduce this topic of data valuation. Of course, I will be using a presentation, but I will be skipping certain slides so that whatever minimum information I would like to give, we will try to cover that. Then we will be continuing the panel discussion at 6:30. Okay. So this topic is a new concept which we are trying to make the industry people take up, which is on identifying how we can ascribe a monetary value to the data. We are looking at data which is nothing but zeros and ones, and the computer looks at it as zeros and ones, whereas we humans look at it as something like a text or an audio or a video. So there is a perception of humans on zeros and ones arranged in a particular manner, and this happens through the intervention of various software and hardware. So those devices which convert zeros into human experienceable information actually make the data meaningful for us. Now that data, people have been telling that the data is oil and all those things. And the question sometimes we raise is, if data is valuable, then what is the value of the data and how do we look at it? See, after all, data is in a way intangible, so you cannot see it, you cannot touch it. But if there is value to it, then there must be some other way by which we make this valuable commodity called data visible to the management of an organization, so that when a data protection officer goes to his CEO and says, I need a particular budget for a tool or something like that, the CFO or the CEO will realize that, yes, we have an asset which has got a value. It is to be protected by our organization, and therefore we need to actually budget certain money. The lack of visibility of data to the management often makes it very difficult for data protection professionals to get the budgetary sanctions, and that reflects in the dilution of data protection regulation, data protection requirements in an organization. So if we are saying that data has to be protected as per law, then we also have to see what do we do to ensure that the organizations and the companies actually are capable of, say, supporting the role of a data protection officer. Many times we see that companies are reluctant to even designate a person as a DPO. They would like a CISO to be also designated as a DPO, or a compliance officer also designated as a DPO, because they don't want one more person drawing some separate salary as a DPO. So recognizing the importance of the DPO is inbuilt into recognizing that data has a value. Now, let me just look at the valuation of data. Okay, I will just skip some of these slides and go to this particular slide on valuation of data asset. Now, When we look at valuation of data, the context in which we look at the value of data may be different. One is, now, as I just explained, that the management wants to deploy certain resources for data protection. There we are looking at data as an asset, and therefore we would like to know its value. So if I have got a godown and there are some assets in that and I have to put certain facilities to protect it, I should know what is the value of that data. This is one objective. The second objective with which many times we look at data as a value item is when companies look at mergers and acquisitions as one of the aspects, where when you are trying to actually sell a company to another company, obviously the value of the company along with all its assets becomes relevant both for the buyer and the seller. There is also an instance where companies go public and they create a market valuation for their enterprise, and that market valuation gets divided into share values. And when a company makes an IPO, the IPO has to reflect the number of shares which are issued, and the aggregate value of all the shares when it becomes marketable should have some relation to the aggregate value of all the assets of an organization. In that context, when we look at an asset and its value, we normally don't go by the value of the asset per se. We look at what is the revenue potential of the asset. If I have got an asset, if I am going to use it in the business, then how much revenue I will earn and how much capitalization factor I have to give for that. Like if I am getting having a bank deposit, if I put 100 rupees in the bank deposit, I have got 5 rupees. So there is a multiple of 20. That is, every 100 rupees gives me 5 rupees. Or if I get a 5 rupees, it is equivalent to 100 rupees in a bank deposit. Likewise, if by investing in a share, if I can get, say, 10 rupees, if I multiply it by 20 rupees, I am willing to pay 200 rupees to the shares. So this kind of increasing the revenue into the value is what normally the investment business does. Now, in the case of the revenue earning assets, what we normally do is we try to make a forecast of the organization's revenue over the next several years, some foreseeable years, 5 to 10 years, and then say that I will try to calculate what we call as the present value of the future earnings, and that present value of future earnings of 8, 10 years is considered as the total value of this organization. Then we say we have got, say, so many shares, 1 lakh shares, 2 lakh shares or something like that. And therefore, each share is valued at rupees so and so, which is the total aggregate value of the discounted value of future earnings divided by the number of shares. Then we make an offer to the public saying that you please take this particular share at this particular value. But often IPOs, sometimes people go by the brand value or the fancy. Now, if you are buying a Zomato share, you are not looking at how much of profit it is earning now and in the next 10 years and how much of discounted cash flow is there. You look at Zomato as a brand and you are willing to pay more than its intrinsic value. Or you may feel that Zomato is doing some business. They may be earning something today. They may not be earning something today, but they have a certain amount of data with them. If this data is properly used by using an appropriate AI and other things, artificial intelligence and other things, this value of data becomes multiple in the sense that it can earn a lot more money for Zomato. Therefore, I speculate that the assets which are there in this company have the ability to earn so much, and therefore my discounted revenue benefit takes into account this speculation. This speculation is also there, as you know, in instances like, say, cryptocurrencies. Now, today, if somebody says Bitcoin is worth so many lakhs, it is pure speculation. Why it should be so many lakhs? Nobody will be able to say. It is because there appears to be a buyer who is willing to buy at a particular price. This is a market value perception of the value of an asset. Accountants are also used to using market value as a basis for asset valuation. Normally, for example, if there is a company which is in gems and jewelry kind of a thing, let us say gems. So they have got some precious stones. The value of these precious stones may be varying from time to time. Therefore, each year when they write a balance sheet, perhaps they may revalue the assets and then bring it to the books. So valuation may be done by such periodical revaluation basis. So there are different ways by which an asset is valued, and we have to see whether data also can be perhaps valued by any of those terms. But the problem is data does not appear to be similar to any other known form of asset. For example, many people think that, okay, we have an accounting system for valuing what we call as intangible assets. Sometimes goodwill of a company, okay, or even trademark rights or patent rights, IPR related things. They don't exist in physical terms like land, building, machinery, but we ascribe value to it. So there is a system by which accountants have designed how to value this particular data, which is intangible. Therefore, some people think that data also can be considered as an intangible asset, and we can try to give a value. But accountants have got their own reservations. They may say that we don't want to give a value unless that is bought from somewhere else. That is, if you buy data from another company, then if you say I have got a value, accountants easily accept it. But if it's a self-generated asset, they feel that, okay, management can put any value to it. What is the reliability of that? And therefore, there is a difficulty in accountants agreeing for a certain valuation, even as intangible assets. In terms of trademark and other things, there are some methods by which accountants have agreed, and many of the balance sheets support IPR as one of the assets. Of course, whenever accountants are a little unsure about the data, what they may say is, we agree that you put it as an asset, but don't mix up the benefit you get out of it on the capital side. Don't add it into capital and then distribute dividend. Create a special reserve which is not distributable as profits. So as accountants, they ensure that there is no overvaluation of the assets, but there is visibility to the trademark right or the goodwill or something like that. So goodwill, trademark rights and others are brought into balance sheets. Managements know I have this trademark. So if I am going for mergers and acquisitions, the buyer also knows that this company has trademarks worth so much. He may agree or disagree, but at least he knows there is visibility to that. Now, whether data can be brought into such kind of an valuation system, one has to see. Otherwise, there is always the possibility of using this revaluation kind of an activity. So if when I'm writing the balance sheet, if I'm an auditor, if I'm certifying the balance sheet, at that time, if I get an inventory of data, of course, inventory will always be certified by the management. I may make some test checks, but basically inventory is created or the availability of certain assets are given by the organization. Even in physical assets, we go by the inventory list given by the management, and the auditor just makes his own assessment of how fair is the valuation and so on. So based on the data inventory provided by an organization, an auditor can value that particular data, and therefore it can be brought into the balance sheet. And if we want to be conservative, we can say that we will not add it to the profitability of the company. We will not add it to the distributable profit. We will put it as a special reserve. we can, even if you are doing some financial analysis, ratio analysis, always analysts know that whatever is there in the balance sheet, they make some readjustments of the figures and go for their own calculation of the ratios. If you calculate a quick ratio and I calculate a quick ratio, maybe we will have different kind of results, because I would have eliminated certain assets, you would have added those assets. So accountants always have a kind of a system by which they readjust the balance sheet data and go about their calculation of the ratios, and whether it's a debt equity ratio or something like that, they are trying to come to a fair assessment. And what the accountants give, bankers will further try to adjust it if bankers are looking at the organization in a particular way. So accountants use sometimes a concept called going concern versus a concept called gone concern, and thereby they do have different systems of valuation. We can bring those systems of valuation also into data. And if we agree upon this, then it is possible to bring the data into the balance sheet. There is also one more methodology which bankers and accountants use, that when you want to put something on the balance sheet, but there is no common standard for that, we actually put it as a contra item, show it in asset side as well as the liability side, so that it doesn't affect the balance sheet as a whole, but that visibility is there. Now, understanding this need to have visibility of the data, when we designed PDPSI, Personal Data Protection Standard of India, about which we are going to have another session, we said that one of the controls we will ask all the management teams is, do you have a system of valuing data and bringing it into your balance sheet? If you are having it, say you have it, how you are having it. If you don't have it, fine, nobody else also may be having it. We will take it into account for the purpose of evaluation. So we have already tried to bring this concept of data valuation into the data audit system, because in India, we want to have a data audit which is also measurable in terms of DTS. Now, when we discuss this personal data protection regulations, one thing comes to our mind, that the value of the data, when it is non-personal and when it is personal, could be different. And even when some data is personal data, now suppose it is sensitive personal data or something else, then also valuation can be different. For example, while we discuss the whole data in terms of personal and non-personal based on identity parameters, and wherever data is identifiable, we call it as personal data. That may be identity related data. It may be related to the health or wealth of a particular person. So financial data or health data. Sometimes it may be even views and beliefs, which is what we call as profiling. And so personal data itself may exist in multiple, you can say, depths or avatars. Now, when we are valuing the data, if you just say that in my inventory, I have got, say, 10 lakh names with email addresses. Now that is one set. Now that if that email address also has got a mobile number, then perhaps the value should be considered different. If apart from the mobile number, you have the health data of this 10 lakh people, then obviously the value of the whole data set increases. Same way, if instead of 10 lakh data sets, I have got 20 lakh data sets, by that also the valuation of the data asset as a whole will increase. So in the personal data environment, when we value data, we should look at the inventory of data, we should look at the type of data, the number of data, the number of elements of identity which are available with a particular set, and then arrive at a certain valuation. Now, the laws actually bring their own effect on this valuation. For example, all data protection law says that the personal data which you have collected from one Mr. X, you have collected it for a certain purpose. You have taken a consent for that particular purpose. Now, if that purpose is not possible to be, if the data is not used for that purpose, you are not allowed to use it for any other purpose, which means that it is a purpose-specific collection of personal data. Now, which means that when you ascribe value to personal data, you have to remember that the value arises because you can use it for one particular purpose from which whatever revenue you can get. You cannot use it for 10 different purposes and say there is so much of value. So if Zomato has collected personal data for the purpose of delivering, say, one food item, that is one order, that is a purpose-specific collection of your information. It cannot be used for the next day's information, for sending you, let us say, a marketing message, unless they have taken the consent when they first booked your order saying that, I want your information for the purpose of delivering this food which you have ordered today. Plus, tomorrow, if I have got some offer to you in terms of some specific things, I would like to inform you. So I would like to use your contact information for marketing purposes. But beyond this, Zomato has not told us that I will use this information to understand what is the eating habits of people in different regions, different parts of the city. And I will use that for providing advisors to various hotels, whether you should open a hotel in this area or that area, and tell him that in this area, people eat more of idlis, in that place they eat more of dosas. So depending upon that, you should have your cooks and facilities based on that. That kind of advisory services is what is making the information collected by companies like Zomato much more valuable than the purpose for which it was collected. Now, I am not saying that Zomato should not use it for these things. They are also talking of cloud kitchens and other things. They can use it provided they have taken the consent of the data subject. That is what the law says. And that's why the PDPB in India is getting delayed, because business interests don't want PDPB because it brings in all these kinds of restrictions. But our law, PDPB, is so flexible that it doesn't prevent you from using it for profiling. It doesn't prevent Zomato from starting a cloud kitchen based on the profiling. It doesn't even prevent Zomato to even make estimates of, let us say, political preferences of the person or something like that, okay? Like what in the US controversies came up. Anything can be done provided you have informed the data subject and taken the consent. Now, this is how the personal data protection laws will affect valuation. Now, same way, when the law says that you have something called anonymization, and if you anonymize the personal data, then that becomes non-personal data, and non-personal data can be monetized easily without any restrictions. But there could be distinctions of non-personal data itself as transactional data, community data, etc. Then the valuation will be on the basis of non-personal data. Of course, anonymization means it is an irreversible process, so that once a personal data identifiable to an individual is anonymized, it cannot be re-identified. So that is the effect of the PDPB on data valuation, which all of us should remember. And when these IPOs come, if the organizations really have the ability, for example, CRED will come with a public issue very shortly. Policybazaar is coming with an IPO. Paytm has come with an IPO. So all these companies have actually negative profit as of today. They have got accumulated losses, but they would like to come to public issue and ask you to pay 1,000 rupees per share. and expect that this 1,000 rupees share will become 2,000 rupees after 1 year. So therefore, you should not lose. Now the question is, this 1,000 rupees valuation comes because the company will use the data in a manner in which it can make more profits than what they are losing today. Today they are having a 5,000 crore loss. Tomorrow they will say, I will make 10,000 crores profit because this data will be used in XYZ ways. Unfortunately, today's disclosure documents don't tell us exactly what is the business plan of an organization. It's a pure speculation. So IPOs are being sold like a branded item. Don't ask me, this particular shirt is a branded shirt. It costs 1,000 rupees. The same shirt, unbranded, costs 300 rupees. The value of cloth, effort, everything is only less than 200 rupees. So the unbranded person also makes 100 rupees profit, but the branded man makes much more profit because of so many other things. We'll not get into the logic of that. Same way today, companies are being sold. Now, the need of the market today is data subjects should understand that it is because they are not providing the proper consent that the profitability of the organization is actually being used by some of these companies much more than what they have actually taken consent for. So when we discuss this data protection law, we have to keep all this in mind. And this is one of the reasons why Indian data protection laws, at least what we believe, is getting delayed and delayed. Two reasons. One is whenever a data breach happens, companies expect that they will have to pay penalty, and data breaches are happening almost every day. So companies which have a weak protective structure, they also don't want Data Protection Act as long as possible. Same way, there's companies which are coming out with IPOs. They also don't want Data Protection Act because people like us will ask them questions. We'll ask them questions of what you will do. So this is something which we as data protection community under FDPPA have recognized as a very important issue which has to be placed before the accountants community. And we are trying to develop a data valuation standard of India. And hopefully in the coming years, you will see a lot of debate on this. And at that time, please remember that it was in IDPS 2021 that we discussed this particular aspect. I will stop my